Overnight, the market didn't just dip. It was the scene of a robbery in plain sight. Silver was yanked from the table, plummeting from 88 down to 74 as if someone simply pulled the plug on the entire global economy. While most of the world was sleeping, over 41,000 leverage traders were liquidated in a single violent wave. We aren't talking about a bad day at the office. We are talking about accounts totally erased, trading screens frozen, and stop losses completely ignored by a ruthless algorithm. This wasn't just a market move. This was a transfer of wealth from the impatient to the strategic. But here is the thing that should keep you awake tonight. The scary part wasn't the drop itself. The scary part is what this crash exposed about the system, and why the next move is effectively engineered to punish anyone who still thinks their emotions are a valid strategy. We need to say the quiet part out loud because the financial media won't do it for you. The market does not reward effort. It rewards structure. When price snaps that violently, it isn't random chaos. It is the system doing exactly what it was designed to do. Hunt down weak leverage, identify impatient money, and take it. Fact: silver fell hard, fast, and without mercy. Interpretation: this move was engineered to force you to make decisions under extreme stress, because stress creates mistakes, and your mistakes create their supply. In a clean, organic market, a fall like that would be a slow bleed, a gradual decline where you have time to think. But this wasn't a slow bleed. This was a trap door opening under your feet. That is the signature of leverage. It turns a normal, healthy pullback into a guillotine. You might think you are trading price, but when leverage is involved, you are actually trading time. And right now, the market is charging interest in panic. Somewhere inside that vertical drop, a trader refreshed his phone and saw a margin call that changed his life for the worse. Somewhere else, a whisper went out saying, "I'm done." But in a quiet office somewhere far away from the noise, someone looked at that exact same red candle and thought, "Perfect." Not because they are sadistic, but because they understand the mechanics of a liquidation event. It is the market screaming a single message: your plan isn't strong enough. If that statement makes you angry, good. Anger means you still care. But do not spend that anger screaming at a chart that doesn't know you exist. Spend it on building a framework that doesn't shatter the moment the candle turns red. Most people confuse volatility with failure. They see a price drop and assume they were wrong. But volatility is not a verdict. Volatility is a test. It is a ruthless audit of your position sizing and a test of how badly you need to be right today versus being rich tomorrow. The market has a favorite type of victim, the person who demands certainty. Certainty is the most expensive commodity in the world, and the market sells it to you at the absolute worst price. So what actually happened behind the scenes? It was a cascade, a chain reaction where tens of thousands of sell buttons were hit simultaneously, not by humans, but by machines closing out insolvent accounts. Leverage created the cliff, liquidations created the waterfall, and the waterfall created the terrifying headline. Most people only stare at the headline, but we need to stare at the plumbing. In a liquidation wave, price isn't discovering value. Price is hunting for collateral. Think of the market like a massive dam. When leverage builds up behind it, everything looks stable. The water is calm, the lines are smooth. Then, one tiny crack forms, and the water doesn't just flow, it explodes. That explosion is forced market orders hitting a thin order book, creating slippage that turns your perfect stop loss into a fairy tale. This distinction is critical if you want to stop donating your money to the exchange. When you hear that price dropped because sellers were stronger, be skeptical. Sometimes the seller is just a computer algorithm closing positions because a human ran out of margin. This changes everything. We don't argue with the candle. We read the DNA of the candle. Was it fear selling, or was it forced selling? Forced selling ends once the accounts are wiped out. Fear selling lingers like a disease. If you can tell the difference, you stop being the prey in the next squeeze. If a move can liquidate 41,000 people overnight, it tells us the trade was overcrowded with amateurs who had no plan for rain. Liquidations don't just destroy, they reset the board. They remove the fuel and clear the order book, creating the perfect conditions for a violent reversal. It's not guaranteed, but it is the scenario the pros are waiting for. Let's get real about why you are actually here. Overload doesn't protect you. Clarity does. Every massive fortune you have ever envied was built in chaos, not in comfort. Chaos is the only time the public gives away valuable assets for emotional reasons. They sell to feel safe. They sell to stop the bleeding. They sell because the pain in their stomach is louder than the plan in their head. And when they sell, someone always buys. We like to imagine the market absorbs it, but the market is just a meeting place. The buyers are people, firms and operators. They don't buy because they are braver than you. They buy because they are prepared. They have cash, they have time, and they have rules. When you see a crash, don't stare at the red. Ask the better question. Who was forced to sell? Because forced selling is the greatest opportunity in the financial world. It doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like a crowd trampling each other to get to the exit. This brings us to the contradiction that messes with your head. A crash feels like the absolute worst moment to buy, but historically, those are the only moments where you get paid for your courage. It isn't about buying blindly. It's about recognizing when quality assets are being dumped alongside the junk because nobody has the time to sort through the pile. That is where positioning wins. But there is a dark side to this game that we need to address. Leverage doesn't just multiply your financial returns, it multiplies your personality flaws. If you are reckless in life, leverage makes you financially suicidal. If you are disciplined, leverage makes you dangerous in a good way. It acts as an amplifier for whatever is already inside you. Ego becomes louder. Fear becomes faster. Patience becomes extinct. The market is absolutely ruthless about one thing: exposure. If you are overexposed, you do not own your trade. Your trade owns you. You wake up in a cold sweat because your life depends on a single candle. That isn't investing. That is hostage negotiation. And trust me, the market does not negotiate. It simply liquidates. We need to ask if those 41,000 people were unlucky or just unprepared. The hard truth is that the price moved, and their sizing made that move fatal. The move didn't even have to be historically large. It just had to be larger than their thin margin of error. Margin is a razor. It feels powerful in your hand until it cuts you deep. The market doesn't need to know your name. It only needs to know where your pain threshold is. Since humans are predictable, pain thresholds cluster together. Everyone uses the same leverage, sets the same stops, and watches the same levels. So, when the reaper comes, he takes everyone at once. We have to separate the adults from the gamblers. Wealth is not created by prediction. It is created by positioning. Prediction is a dopamine hobby for people who want to feel smart. Positioning is a boring discipline for people who want to get rich. Prediction asks, where will the price be tomorrow? Positioning asks, if I am wrong, where will the damage show up first? Prediction wants to be the hero who calls the top. Positioning just wants to stay in the game long enough to win. Cash is a position. Knowledge is a position. Emotional stability is a massive position. And the most underrated position of all is humility. Humility is the only thing that lets you cut risk before the market cuts you. Most people only prepare for sunshine. They buy when it feels safe and get confident when the herd is confident. Then a storm hits, and they discover they built their financial house out of paper. We don't do that. We prepare for storms. We keep dry powder. We build our rules when we are calm, so we don't have to invent them while we are bleeding. In the moment of fear, your brain is not a strategist. It is a frightened animal. And animals run. This is why you need systems, not vibes or hope. The biggest mistake people make is treating the market like a slot machine, pulling the lever again and again because they are addicted to the feeling of action. But real wealth isn't a feeling. Real wealth is the accumulation of boring, good decisions that you didn't brag about on social media. It is the discipline to do absolutely nothing when nothing is the right move.